Good morning. It is Tuesday, January 25th. It's 9 o'clock. We have a full slate of commissioners, the administrator, and the clerk of the board. I will call the meeting to order, and if you'd please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first thing on the agenda is the Potts and Associates. Are they on the phone, Keith?
Zach, are you on the phone? Zach, can you hear me?
I would just move on and then come
Okay.
back.
The next is the Certificate of Appreciation. There's two of them. Could you hand them to me, Rocky?
Oh, sure.
The first being Mr. Roger Link. Mr. Roger Link passed away not too long ago, and I don't see his wife here. But on behalf of Franklin County, I'd like to express our gratitude for your husband's faithful service as a representative of Riverview Pasco UGA Planning District. Mr. Link was appointed into the Planning Commission on August 27, 2018. He was chairman of the board from 20 to 21, review and updated the Planning Commission and Shoreline Hearing Board Bylaws Subcommittee. Mr. Lincoln's contributions to the county have been invaluable. Please accept this certificate of appreciation for Mr. Link's dedication and professionalism. We hope you just know how much we respect him and have valued his service. He will be missed at Franklin County. It's Roger Link. And then also, we have Mr. Claude Parrott, 22 years of service to Franklin County. On behalf of Franklin County, I'd like to express our gratitude for your faithful service as a representative of the Snake River Star School Planning District. An appointment to the Planning Commission since 1999, serving as vice chair for 8 years and chairman since 2018. In addition, serving on various subcommittees, including the 2021 review and update to the Planning Commission and Shoreline Hearing Board's Bylaws Subcommittee. Your contributions to the county and your years of service have been invaluable. Please accept this certificate of appreciation for your dedication and professionalism. We hope you just know how much we respect you and have valued your efforts. You will be missed at Franklin County. Claude Parrott. Is there any other comments from the other commissioners on those two gentlemen?
I'll just offer that the Planning Commission is a crucial part of our process that sometimes gets overlooked. Their recommendations come to us for review and final approval, but the vast majority of the work, and especially the public access to weigh in on the decisions that this board makes, happens at the Planning Commission level, and I think that often gets overlooked. And both these gentlemen were significant contributors, and as has already been stated, it's a significant loss for the county. Thank you.
Just want to say thank you for their time and their service. These gentlemen gave their time to the county, and just want to say thank you.
And I just got to add that we also lost another member who's moving to Texas, and we're down to 4 members on the planning committee, so we need to rebook that. We got to get on the horse here and get those 3 spots filled so that we have 7 people on the planning so that they can always have a quorum with 4. And I think we're already on our way up doing that, correct, Keith?
Yeah.
Okay.
Posted those vacancies.
Mr. Chairman, this might be appropriate time to point out that there's another option, and it's called a hearings examiner. I'd like that to be on a future agenda before we appoint additional members to the Planning Commission so that the board can decide which of those 2 options best serves the interests of our citizens.
well noted. And I think it's always best represented when we have people of the public. Instead of one voice, we have 7 voices who can talk and debate about the pluses and minuses of anything. So I like the idea of 7 members on the, instead of just 1. But I know that's an option, and we will discuss it. So have we got Potts and Associates on the phone now?
Check again, please. Zach, are you on the phone?
Yes, sir. I am.
Okay, thank you. Please go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. I'm going to kind of go over a couple of things that are a little bit in the background here in terms of what's going on with session, and then come around to kind of some of the end game here that might play out as we get towards the end of session, and that'll help kind of give you a lens into what might be happening here, early on, even before the first cutoff, which is next Thursday. That cutoff on the 3rd is for policy bills to pass out of their committee of origin, and then there's going to be another one the following week that will be for the financial bills or fiscal bills to pass out of their committee. And after a bill that has a fiscal note or cost money of any variety, it'll go from a policy committee to the fiscal committee, and it'll sit there until the fiscal committee decides to hear it and pass it on to rules. So one of the things that happened last year is, as we're all well aware, when it came to the end of session to get the budgets passed, leadership in both houses and both parties made compromises, made deals, and they got the budget passed. So then what happened when the governor signed the budget into law, basically he vetoed many of the compromises with the Republicans that the Democrats made. So what that might do coming into the end of session here, if I was in Republican leadership, and the Democrats were talking about wanting to compromise, and come to the table, my first question would be, why would I want to compromise on this when your governor last year vetoed every one of our compromises? Why should we move? So that'll put kind of an interesting spin on the end of session here when they're really trying to get out the door. It will affect things, bills between now and then. And right now, because it's an election year, there are a lot of bills that have been introduced that are, hey, look what I did, look what I tried, single sponsor bills. I kind of alluded to one in there. There's a bill that was put up that basically talks about how to combine counties or split counties up or whatever to form a new county. And there's one sponsor, probably won't go anywhere, just naturally die in committee, depends on how bad, a position the legislators are in that run these bills. Do they pass them out of committee and then just don't hear them on the floor? So definitely we're watching that. One of the things that, is before the first cutoff, because there are so many bills like that, a lot of them are going to die. And the kind of what we're recommending right now is until cutoff. Unless there's a really firm position on something that we're sure is going to move or sure isn't going to move, and we're going to try and get it there, it's kind of just sit back and wait and watch to see what happens, because we might put our political capital behind or in front of something that is or isn't going to move one way or the other, or it is going to move out of committee, but it's not going to go anywhere. Now, the risk we run with that sometimes is if there's a bill that we like but maybe want a little bit of a change to it, hey, can we put this one word in here, shall, may, whatever a small change might be, we go to the sponsor. The sponsor can look right at us and say, well, where the heck were you in the first committee? I didn't see you sign in, didn't see you didn't see you really do much of anything. And, the answer is, well, to be honest, we didn't really know what was going to move and what wasn't going to move, and you couldn't tell us. So it is a risk that we run in doing that. So, obviously, if there's anything you guys want to really address and really get on here before cutoff, please do let me know. With that, this Friday coming up, and Senate, state government and elections at 10:30, going to be a heck of a committee to watch. If you've got time, definitely would be worth watching. They're talking about legislative oversight of the gubernatorial powers concerning emergency proclamations and unanticipated receipts. Basically, they're wanting to talk about reviewing the governor's emergency powers every 30 days. You guys were asking whether this was going to come up, and it certainly is. I think that this is a bipartisan bill. I think this one's going to move forward. I've heard some conversation saying, wow, well, it's 90 days. Do you think we could pull it back to 30? I think on this one, if we get the policy in place, it's a lot easier later on to come back and shorten the timetable as opposed to try and get the bill passed with a 30-day window on it right now. And it's probably going to move forward anyway. The other one, and that's 5909. The other bill that is kind of interesting here is 5843. That's the one that makes it unlawful for public officials and candidates to knowingly make false statements and claims regarding election processes or the results of elections conducted within the state. I'm getting on both sides of this issue right now from different counties. We're kind of hearing, people shouldn't be saying wrong things. You could harm voters. Other people are saying this is a straight up First Amendment violation. And there's questions about the scope. So, why is it that a candidate or an elected official can't say things about the elections, but, maybe they could say something, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge is a death trap, and scare people from going across the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. It's a weak example, but you get what I'm saying. Why is it only election? Personally, I think I'm not an attorney by any means, but I do think that if this bill does pass, there will be a First Amendment constitutionality challenge, and there will probably be a scope challenge, specifically talking about why is it just elections? Why aren't we barring elected officials from lying about anything? And then there's a couple more election bills there, and then the really more fun one is 5908. That creates a clean car authority as a new state government agency. I'm sure that that's something we definitely need. So that Friday committee is going to be real interesting. I brought up a couple of other bills on here, and I'll give you kind of a rundown. Specifically, 5901, might be a good one, if you're talking the tax credit. If somebody adds a warehouse of over 100,000 square feet, then they get a tax credit on that. And that would certainly apply to grain elevators. It would apply to tree fruit, anybody, a manufacturing warehouse. So that'd be a positive for economic development. There's a couple of bills here, 1921 and 1722. 1921 is talking about personal property, changing the tax on personal property for renewable energy to a built payment. And the 1722 is a micro-trenching bill. Interesting on both of these, the micro-trenching bill is kind of a hard no. You'd be compelled to allow a utility to micro-trench anywhere they wanted in your right-of-way. Both of these bills, my comment to them is kind of going back to, we really have no idea what's going on with them because we thought both have been working with Axel at the counties and the sponsors. We thought we had some sort of a possible path forward with amendments, strikers, rewording on the bills, and then all of a sudden they're going to committee with, we're just going to throw the bill up there and see what happens. So for everybody, it's kind of let's watch the committee. We'll just have to see what happens and comment as it goes. So it's really interesting. That's coming down to that, the cutoff on the 3rd for policy, see what gets through. The big nasty here is the 1727 and 1838 that's titled Protecting, Restoring, and Maintaining Habitat for Salmon Recovery. Where this one really comes in is the riparian borders, specifically around streams, rivers, creeks, things like that. Very, very, very onerous to your local agricultural community. And this bill really pits fishermen, tribes, and anybody wanting to bolster the salmon population against farmers, agriculture in general, anybody upstream. A positive note on this one, if you watch the committee, basically what everybody who testified opposed to this, who's engaged, everybody said, look, if you would fund the VSP, which is the Voluntary Stewardship Program, fully from the state, this bill would pretty much be unnecessary because we'd be able to manage our riparian areas just fine through the Voluntary Stewardship Program, which the legislature has not funded fully. So maybe if we're lucky, this will kind of spur some of those conversations. Even the sponsor of the bill said, hey, you know, there's a lot of work to do on this. We're going to watch real close because this is probably, in terms of affecting the rural areas, this is probably one of the most damaging bills that we could see. You know, it would compel the purchase of or sale of land at, you know, a cost that to farmers, it would put farmers and dairymen and cattlemen out of business. Probably the orchards too. I mean, it's just a kind of a nasty. I did include two in the report. 1941 is prohibiting active shooter scenarios for school safety related drills. And then 1973, which is concerning the recording of school board meetings. You know, I don't know if it's something as county commissioners that you guys would like to take a position on, but certainly in the rural areas where parents are much more engaged in the school, it might be something to pass on, you know, to your school boards, or at least let your constituents know that these bills are out there and they can weigh in on them. You know, it's just one of those things you might just point some constituents to. So with that, I have got a couple of interesting positions on these. I am interested to know where you guys stand on the 5843, making it unlawful for public officials and candidates to knowingly make false statements. I think I know, but like I said, I've been surprised so far. So if you have any feedback on that one, I'd greatly appreciate it. And then are there any other issues and bills that you guys would like to know about or like to follow, or anything of interest?
Questions, commissioners? I guess I'll start on 1727, the one on the buffers. This was brought up, and I've been told that they're using 20-year-old language. Well, I was on the council there, a federal appointee, and this all came up in the early 2000s. My question to you on this is: has there been any address to the canal systems over here in eastern Washington, and if we're exempt from this buffer?
I think you're talking 5727, correct? And the riparian buffers. I think that's a very good question that needs to be answered. It was raised. I think there's some implications that, you know, they could include the canal systems. And I think that's part of the issue with the bill. I can dig into that one a little bit more to see if they've actually clarified that.
Okay, I appreciate it.
It would be better if they were going to pass the bill, if we could get a specific, this does not include or does not apply to the Columbia River Basin Reclamation Project canal system.
Exactly.
I mean, that's something you want to have in there as an exact, it does not apply, not an inference.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions or clarifications for the morning here?
Zach, this is Commissioner Peck. Reference 1727, it's still unclear whether or not this bill would even apply to federal ownership of shorelines on the Columbia River. For example, the Corps of Engineers. It does not appear to apply to areas where existing shoreline plans are in place, like the western border of Franklin County or the McNary Shoreline Pool, but that hasn't been clear. There's a lot in this bill, frankly, that isn't clear yet, and most of the discussion has been circulating around streams that bear salmonids, steelhead salmon, other fish of that nature that are threatened and migratory. It seems to be a stretch for them to tie it to canals, but don't underestimate their ability to do unexpected things. Thanks.
Very correct. And, you know, the other thing that was brought up, a question for the sponsor and in the committee from an opposed individual said, do you have any scientific data or evidence or studies that show that this will actually help the salmon population? The answer was a kind of I don't really know. So I would say no, they don't have a study they can specifically point to on this. So there may be a best science question on this one as well. Again, with how much of a charged bill this is and an election year and, the fact that it doesn't really seem totally cooked in terms of it's not clear, the questions you guys are asking are very applicable. It probably isn't going to go, but we need to keep a really close eye on it.
So Zach, this is Commissioner Didier again. I referred to it as 1727. You corrected me to 5727. For clarity, is it 5727?
Yes, 5727.
Okay.
1727 talks about odd-numbered election years.
Okay, so on that same topic, I've been born and raised here, 62 years old. We have witnessed fish in our canal system, so I'm sure they would, with the new screening systems that they've got now, we haven't seen them for decades, but there were fish in the canal systems because it's water coming from the Columbia River.
And that is the question. So I will look into that. I will see if anybody's talked about that. Right now, to be honest with you, I think pretty much all the agricultural producers, any of the cattlemen, cattle producers, any agriculture, anything is just a hard no on this bill. I haven't heard much of trying to amend it. They're just saying no.
Zach,
But I will look into that exemption.
Zach, this is Commissioner Mullen. Is there any update on the country of origin labeling?
In terms of changes that might be made, I don't think there's any changes that are coming necessarily. I mean, obviously there's always looking at, does this work? What are they doing? I would expect maybe something next year to come in if there is something that they decide to do. If they changed that rule 3-4 years ago, and you're pitting the packers, Tyson meats, things like that, against the cattlemen and cattle producers, and it's a pretty heated debate.
Thank you.
All right, Zach, I think we've got it covered. We appreciate it.
All right, absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen, as well. As always, call or email anytime, and we'll get a lot more serious about, really knowing how this is going to look and what they're going to try and push through after next Thursday. So our next update will be probably a little bit more action.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
With that, we'll move down to office business, approval of payroll rosters.
Move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $432,088.47 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the Auditor's Office and the County Administrator.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Move for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in the total amount of $1,100,099.30 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the Auditor's Office.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 And now we're down to the consent agenda. I believe there are 4 items on the consent agenda.
Move for approval of consent agenda items 1 through 4.
Second with discussion on item 4.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of the consent items 1 through 4 with discussion on 4. Please go ahead.
So I used to serve on this committee years ago, and my recollection is that the administrative support and lead for that was funded out of DOE, and I think it still is. But note the read-ahead talks about member agencies contributing financially and sharing in liability if there's claims, and I don't recall that historically. May have been just one of those things we never dug into. But Keith, do you know offhand if there is a membership assessment or is that just language placed in there in case they decide to add one?
I will have to check on that. My understanding was that there was an assessment.
Okay, and the other thing I'd note is that it doesn't have the normal, what I would call de minimis termination option where we can terminate for convenience. Says that jurisdiction may withdraw without penalty effective December 31st of any year, provided written notice is given no later than the preceding June 30th. So it's at least a 6-month notice to get out of it too. So I'm not concerned enough about it to oppose supporting it. I know the group, I know their mission. I think it's worth being involved. I just think we should get a little bit more clarity on that one, Keith. Thanks.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second for the 4 consent items. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. We'll move on down to Commissioner Administrator updates. Keith?
Yes, thank you. Clearly, a lot going on with the legislature right now, so we're trying to follow those bills that are impacting the county. Participated in a NACO call regarding the final ARPA rules that has been released about a week and a half ago. NACO's done some very good analysis of eligible projects and so forth, so we're learning still as we go, but we have a good idea of now what qualifies. And I think time will demonstrate that we were wise to wait a little bit till the final rule came out, because there are some pretty significant changes from the interim rule that we had been operating under. Most of those changes actually work to the county's advantage. It'll be a little more easy for us to qualify projects under ARPA program. I'll be going into that probably in more detail when we bring a specific project to the board, but just wanted the board to be aware of that. I'm sure you're hearing a little bit about that in your WASAC calls. There's a quarterly report that's due at the end of this week. My office will be responsible for completing that report, what we've done so far and what we intend to do. Also, been working on a couple of personnel matters, and then working on a regional letter. The Colville tribe has asked most of the cities and counties in the area to write a letter of support for some work that they're doing with this property that they bought in Franklin County. We're working with the city of Pasco and others to make sure that we're consistent and aware of what each entity's position is on that relationship. So it's an important relationship. It's going to be a long-term one. We want to make sure we handle that correctly. So I'm going to spend a little time on that.
Commissioner Peck?
Like my fellow commissioners, had the Benton Franklin Board of Health meeting on Wednesday. The briefings and the content of that are public, so if somebody wants to view that, they can do it. No need to go into details now. Benton Franklin Council of Governments, representing 2 counties and all of our cities, met Friday. The WASAC, Washington State Association of Counties Legislative Steering Committee, weekly meeting, that was Friday for 2+ hours, going through dozens of bills potentially affecting counties. The WASAC Assembly meeting, which was yesterday, where we had a presentation from University of Washington and WSU about a training program that they've created together with, I think, Utah State or University of Idaho, or Utah, I'm not sure which school. Anyway, it has to do with remote work training programs and providing certificates for training for remote work as a way to try and meet some of the workforce shortages, ensure that people are that are applying for those positions actually have access to broadband and skills and training to be able to effectively participate in jobs remotely. Yesterday, had the Hanford Area Economic Investment Trust or Fund. It's the loan fund to local cities and counties and also private businesses using funds off of the landfill tipping fees out at the Hanford Reservation. A couple of other lesser meetings. Thanks.
Commissioner Mullen.
Yes, attended the Benton Franklin Board of Health meeting, also the Disability Board meeting. Also had a meeting with the Franklin County Emergency Management. Some updates there was we went over the state audit report for 2018-2020. Everything, all operations were in compliance. You can order at-home test kits now through, you can find them online at special.ups.com/test kits. And also attended the Pasco Chamber of Commerce Ag Hall of Fame, which gives recognition to the ag community for their achievements and contributions to Franklin County. It was a fantastic evening with incredible stories of commitment and perseverance of the families that make Franklin County what it is today. It was truly a great evening of giving recognition. On that note, the story from the Martinez family was absolutely amazing and gives Franklin County something to be proud of, where a family comes in with basically just hard work and perseverance and have become leaders in the community. It was an awesome and great story. Thank you.
So I also attended the Ben Franklin Board of Health meeting, and I asked Dr. Pearson for the studies to back up her or the state's mask mandate and the possibility of mandating vaccinations. And I encourage everybody to yesterday to go online and watch Senator Ron Johnson put together a board of experts, and to watch that. Very interesting, and in contrast to our state Board of Health. We've got doctors, professionals talking about this pandemic, what is actually being more harmful to the public is the fact that our children are being forced to isolate, wear masks, and it's having a very, very detrimental impact on their lives and their well-being. I also attended the Hanford community meeting, and then the emergency management meeting, and then I had a meeting with our interim public works director, Craig, with a bunch of farmers out there, locals, talking about our roads and the vision for the future. Also the possibility of using our fire, the emergency personnel for fires, to possibly, they're under the same umbrella, and with training, they're under the same umbrella for insurance, and with training we could have more possible hands on deck for snow removal. And I think it's a great opportunity for the community to help with this snow removal when we have, which we haven't had for a couple years. We did have a little bit here earlier, and it got more up north, and there was complaining going on up there. I heard it, but it's an opportunity for the personnel that work for the fire districts to also aid in clearing roads. And so we're going to look into that with HR and see if there's a possibility of that happening. But I'd encourage the other commissioners to put together a meeting with constituents, and I think public input and having it out in the public for discussion is an excellent opportunity for Franklin County to get better with our road management. So with that, we'll move on down to public comment. If there's anybody with public comment, please come forward. Or is there anybody on the phone, Keith?
I have, looks like two people on the phone.
Okay, we'll take the phone calls first. Into that with HR.
Good morning, Michelle. Good morning. Thank you for public comment. You know that a couple of bills you talk about, 5727, I want to remind you that one of the executive orders from Biden in the first week was to make 30% more land in each state conservation land, and it's called the 30 by 30 plan. And if you don't know about it, I stringently ask you to look into it, because it does have to do with what's going on in the Bureau of Reclamation land and these canals. You know that Washington State sets precedent again and again, and I think that your NEPA training is all the more critical. That is where you really do learn what the powers you have with federal and state governments in terms of water issues and land issues. So please, please find out about it and get trained. I can't emphasize that enough. Also, I did sit in on the Board of Health meeting, the 4-hour, with the 7,500 people wanting to comment. And as we see them again, we've been notified that they are again still considering giving our children a shot. And I would not call it a vaccination because it does not stop COVID. It does not stop the spread of COVID. And the VAERS database is continuing to go up. There are more and more issues, especially with young people. So scientific data is very much available. I couldn't possibly reiterate it all in 3 minutes. But I would urge now for our county to consider supporting other counties and coming together with our state legislators and start pushing back and opening up our state, releasing us of all mandates, and pushing for the limited time of power, whether it's 14 days, 30 days. I don't like the 60 and 90 days. I really prefer that 14 days. But limiting the powers of our governor, who has proved himself corrupt once again by using taxpayer dollars to the tune of $200,000 or more to pay for PACs and other things that don't even have anything to do with our state. So I do think that people have seen the virus come through. It has weakened. It is more contagious but less powerful, and it is time to urge our county health system, even though there are separate powers, I understand that, but the voice of the people is getting louder and much more clear, and I urge our county to begin stringently moving towards opening up. We are getting COVID, but we are not dying of it. 98% survival rate, not to take away from those that have suffered and passed at all. But we need to start standing for our rights because they keep chipping away at them. And that's the main purpose of government, is to protect the people. Thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Garcia.
Good morning.
You have the floor for 3 minutes.
Well, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, and letting me speak again. 2 weeks ago, I came to this body in ask of further investigation into determination of a mental health contract, namely between DCBH and Lourdes Counseling Center. And just wanted to give you an update that I have asked the Benton County Commissioners to do the same, since you all sit on the same health board together, and we're all about improving the health care of Tri-Cities. I felt that there was a need to do that. And the importance of this, I want to re-inculcate, is just to bring the truth forward. I think that when we're talking about such a large amount of money that is our money, right? It is your money, it's my money, it's state's money. Accountability needs to rule. And as friends, we hold each other accountable so we could succeed. And whatever the truth is, then let it come forward. But to terminate a large mental health contract with an organization that has provided mental health for decades and not say why leads to the perception that this is not above board, that this was a backdoor deal, that this may have been a personal vendetta. And these are things that will be cleared up if we can just bring the truth to light and let it be. And I think that the citizens of Tri-Cities and myself will accept that. We just don't want our money to be spent without accountability. Now, I know all three of you are men of honor, and want to do what's best for the community, so I trust that this will go further, and at some point, the truth of this step will come through, and we will see why these things happened and that they were for the best interest of the citizens of Tri-Cities. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. No other callers.
Anybody in?
Good morning, Commissioners. I wanted to just point something out that I've found interesting. Our state has voted, the citizens have voted 10 times to not impose a income tax on our constituency or your constituency, the citizens of the state of Washington, yet the Liberal Democrat Party won't hear that voice. Our government is set up of, for, and by the people, yet those that are in the right now the ruling party won't hear that voice. And I want to tell two of you specifically thank you for, even though we know that it's not binding at this point, for sticking up and saying, as the leaders of Franklin County, that you do not support an income tax on the citizens of Franklin County. I think it's interesting to see some of the bills that are in session right now, and some of the ways they are not taking no for an answer, not after 10 times. And I believe this started back in the 30s when we said no, and we've said it over and over again, and still today they won't take no for an answer. So I'm thankful that you stood up. I'm thankful that you took a stand. And last night at Pasco City Council meeting, Pete Serrano is trying to bring that to the council. And I thought it was very telling to listen to some of the voices last night and previously, as this has been on the docket there for a little bit. I thought it was really interesting to hear the comments like, well, they know that we're not for this. Why do we need to spend time on it? We make proclamations as a county all the time. We say things all the time that, you know, may or may not be binding, but for you to stand up and tell your citizenry where you stand and what your leadership looks like, I think is really important. So I wanted to say thank you for that, and continue to stand strong for the citizens that elected you, that you represent. And thank you for saying that you'll never be a part of an income tax on the citizens of Franklin County.
Anybody else for public comment? No other calls, Keith? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on down to the district court position reclassification and compensation.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on, if I could just have a moment of privilege here. The last gentleman that commented referenced that two of us have expressed our opposition to a state income tax, and since I have expressed my opposition, and I know that both of you are opposed to it, I thought it would be worth clarifying for the record that we have 3 commissioners that are not in favor of a state income tax in Washington. Thank you.
Public comment still open?
We were moving on, but public comment is still open.
That's okay.
We got another public comment coming up. So with that, we'll move down to the district court position, reclassification and compensation, resolution 2022-2021, presented by Eric.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. Excuse me. I bring this request on behalf of District Court Judge Roach. HR, under the previous HR director, late last year, worked on a compensation review with that office. Essentially, they're looking to streamline kind of their management duties with a particular position in there, and so I think I've documented everything in the read ahead, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on that request.
Questions, Commissioners?
No questions. Happy to move for approval of resolution 2022-021 as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second for resolution 2022-021. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
So with that, we'll move down to public hearing on amendment number 1 to the 2022-2027 Transportation Improvement Plan, presented by Mr. Erdman.
Morning, Board.
Please go ahead, sir.
This hearing is required under RCW 36.81, which requires counties to prepare and annually update their 6-year transportation improvement program and present them in a public hearing, including adding, deleting, or amending projects. At the time of the adoption of the 2022 to 2027 Transportation Improvement Plan, Resolution 2021-138, projects had been submitted to WashDOT for the Highway Safety Improvement Program, but final selection by WashDOT had not been accomplished in time for submission to the annual Transportation Improvement Plan. Taylor Flat Shoulder Widening and Ringgold Road Slope Flattening and Guardrail were the 2 projects that made the final selection from WashDOT. These projects have been awarded $1,844,000. I'll be happy to answer any questions of the board.
Questions, Commissioners?
No questions, just thanks for getting them in. I'll be spending most of this week at the State County Road Administration Board, so if there's other projects that are still hanging, please let me know.
Will do. No questions.
Sure appreciate it. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I don't know if it's appropriate, but it was a hearing. I don't know if it had to be open and closed.
No, it does need to be opened.
You open it, yeah.
Okay. At this time, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval of Resolution 2022-022 as presented in the matter of amendment number 1 to the 2022-2027 Transportation Improvement Plan.
Second.
Been a motion and a second to approve the Resolution 2022-022. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on down to the closed record hearing. Zone Change 2021-01, Columbia River West Area, Clifford, Ilby, presented by Mr. Bratton. So at this time, I'll open the closed record hearing.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a request by Glenn Clifford and Marilyn Eby to rezone approximately 13.19 acres comprising 3 lots from AP 20 to RC1. So these are the 3 properties requested. These are the Clifford properties. This is the Edie property. As mentioned, it's 3 properties. Their rough location is being bisected by Columbia River, so 2 on the north, 2 and 1 on the south of Columbia River Road. They are all outside of the UGA, but 2 have been addressed.
Excuse me, Derek,
yeah.
Would you go back to the map, please?
Sure.
Because what I saw and what I thought I heard you say didn't...
I'm sorry, yeah.
Nope, you were correct, thank you.
Okay. So these are the property location descriptions. All of this information and more, of course, was provided to you in the staff report and the read ahead. The properties, the intent is to rezone the entirety of the 13.19, so all 3 properties. Comp plan for rural shoreline development. Current zoning is at AP 20. There are no critical areas mapped in the area. And staff, the SEPA lead official determine the DNS, determination of non-significance for SEPA. Most conditions or whatnot beyond standards would come out at the time of subdivision if a party sought to subdivide. This is parcel number 126. So it's already got a house and development on it. Then a portion of it is an orchard, and then I apologize for the blurriness on this, but basically the rest of the three, all the properties are currently under orchard as well. And it's a recommended motion. More than happy to answer any questions.
Questions, commissioners?
Just for clarity, on the map, it says, can you point out where Helm Road is at? I can't, it's not labeled on my map. I can't see it.
I didn't realize that this is Helm Road. There's a sign there, it says Helm Road. But it terminates and goes into a farm access design. So it's kind of built to a full width for this portion of the property, and then it necks down into a pretty traditional farm road style.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Derek, with Helm Road, is it a road that's been accepted by the county that would require an approach permit, or would the approach be onto Columbia River?
From these properties at this point in time, that would be determined. At this point in time, they access on Columbia. I'm not sure. This one, I'm not sure where they're using.
Okay. Do you know offhand if Helm is an accepted county road?
Oh,
I'm asking because
only at the access point, I would say.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it necks down, like I said, really tight, and then basically turns into like a farm road, what I call a farm road. You can almost see the two lanes or from the tires. I mean, it's just not developed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have no other questions.
Mr. Chairman, move for approval of ordinance 01-2022.
Excuse me, Commissioner Peck, I need to close the record hearing. So at this time, I will close the closed record hearing and entertain a motion.
We can get some clarity later on whether or not motions are permitted in the hearing. Move for approval of ordinance 01-2022 in the matter of zone change 2021-01 Columbia River Road West area as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve zone change 2021-01 Columbia River Road West area Clifford UB ordinance 01-2022. All in favor say aye.
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 With that, we'll move down to the administration office business. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Before you this morning is a letter that we have been asked to co-sign with other jurisdictions in the Tri-Cities area, Benton County and the cities. This is essentially a lobbying effort to the legislature to ask for some amendments to certain law enforcement bills that were passed last year that have some demonstrated examples of where local police officials have had some difficulty keeping the public safe as a result of the restrictions that have been placed upon them. I did not author the letter, but have read it and reviewed it, and I don't find anything in there that we shouldn't support. We did give Sheriff Raymond an opportunity to read the letter. He did not object to it. He's not a signer to the letter, but I wanted to make sure that he at least had that opportunity to review it. This makes the request for several amendments to some of those bills that were passed last year as police reform legislation. So that's what we're asking for your approval and signature today.
Mr. Chairman, I have no opposition to signing it. It's a good letter.
Commissioner Mullen?
I have no opposition to signing it. So.
And neither do I, so that's unanimous. Anything else, Keith?
Nope, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, we're down to public comment.
Commissioner, sorry for the interrupt. I did think of one thing. I have a need for a very short executive session. It's not on the agenda. It's not particularly time sensitive. I could wait till next week, but I would like to call about a 5 to 10 minute executive session of the board, if that's amenable to you.
Okay, and that's separate from the closed session?
Yes, sir.
RCW?
Is that something you'd like to do now, Mr. Johnson, or later?
Probably later. We can go ahead.
Yeah,
with
let's
the
get through
rest of the
public comment
agenda.
first. Mr. George Dockstetter, please.
Thank you. I thought it was going to be an open public hearing on the road plan. One of the projects that need to be looked at seriously is from 395 West on Vineyard down to where it intersects at the crossing of Self Landing, and from there back to the hump yard. We need to seriously consider making those two sections all-weather roads because we're going to have a lot, and I do mean a lot, of truck traffic from that Dairygold plant. And I think that needs to be a priority that is moved up on the road plan. Thank you.
Do you want to speak to that, Keith, a little bit about what's planned already with the...
Yeah, I don't have the details in front of me now, but yes, we're aware that truck traffic around the whole Dairygold project is a transportation priority for making sure that we have adequate roads and safe roads for those trucks to come in and out. So I think Dairygold estimated maybe 150 trucks a day, and they're the big trucks. They're coming from all over. So we're aware of the importance of that.
I was wondering about state funding for some of that.
Yeah, we're pursuing state and federal. The federal government just announced some new grants for transportation infrastructure that we'll be pursuing those as well. And some of those will be federal highway money coming through the state. We'll pursue every dollar we can find.
I was also going to make comment on the need for studying this traffic thing very carefully. We're getting ready to add thousands of truck trips a day into our Franklin County road system, as well as federal, the highway system and city streets. So that definitely warrants careful consideration. I think I need to clarify something for the record, what I said. Not sure if an apology is in line. Certainly would be happy to extend an apology if that's necessary. My point was, for the record, that two of our county commissioners, when brought before them a opportunity to vote, to speak publicly in a vote, that they opposed income tax in our county. And like one commissioner did at that time, what I heard last night at the county council meeting was an opportunity arose, but for various political and whatever other reasons, chose not to vote and put their name on the record, for the record, that they opposed it in a vote. A vote is is something where that you put your name down on one side of the line or the other. And while public comments are certainly important and certainly helpful, when the opportunity comes to put your name on one side of the line or the other side of the line, I think that's an important distinction that needs to be had. And so once again, I am thankful that two of you made that choice and put your name on one side of the line, and disappointed that the other chose to put his name on the other side of the line for various reasons. Some of them stated that it was not binding, and we do things that are not binding often. And in politics and in the various tasks that we have, but when it comes down to a vote, I think it's important for the record that your name be on one side of the line or the other. And I think it's an important distinction to say that it was a split vote, 2 for, 1 against an ordinance that was brought before the county to vote for not bringing an income tax and not supporting an income tax. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to respond briefly and just point out that it is not only entirely possible, it is common, excuse me, for people to have an opposition to an act, in this case an income tax, but have a difference of opinion on the best approach and the best vehicle to enact that opposition. So I'll just leave it there and point out that I don't know which commissioner you're speaking to. I'm certainly opposed to an income tax in the state, have been all along. But I think we are always wise to choose the most effective time, place, and manner to do that. But I appreciate the fact the speaker is also opposed to an income tax.
Important distinction, and I do appreciate that, and looking forward to that other direction or other opportunity or other way that's going to be brought, so that a vote can be taken, so that a voice can be heard, so that three names can be on the side of the line that says we do not encourage or support an income tax. And I think that after the Liberal Democratic Party in our state has heard the citizens say 10 times over decades that we do not support this, I think it's really important at times like these that it's a very, very strong opposition to bringing a income tax. And I look at the more than dozen other jurisdictions that have done something very similar, wording slightly different, but very, very similar. And I think it's very important that this happen. We say things all the time. We do things all the time. We make public proclamations and stuff often. And it's, to me, it's somewhat of a barometer on where our electeds are in different areas. That's something that I see it. You know, something that happens with the city council is they bring a proclamation for a yard of the month, somebody that's doing a good job standing up in their community and being a good example. And I think that that's a good thing. And I think bringing public proclamations forward in times are important to show a barometer of where our electeds are at. And an income tax, I think, is one of those things that after decades and after 10 votes by the people that said no, they're still not getting the message. So obviously the route that we're using is not effective. So maybe a different route is warranted. And I think that there's people that have said we have a different opportunity, we have a different route. Let's put it out there, say we don't support it. And more than a dozen other jurisdictions have said the same. And I think this is an important distinction. I think it needs to be done, and I think it needs to be done in public. And I can't speak strongly enough to this, that I think that it's important that our leaders stand up in public and tell us where they stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Anybody on the phone?
We have one caller on the phone. Michelle, you have the floor for 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. As a follow-up to my previous comment, please note the State of the State address noted higher consultation with tribes, and note that that all has to do with both water and the casino. I will be sending you a map of the lands held in trust, including Franklin County, and the NEPA scoping tools. There was, as a point of history, and I have this document as well, when Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, he also freed the tribes to find land with us, and that law was stuffed in a drawer and has been pulled out in recent times. And what I'm trying to do is help our county commissioners with their decisions and their jurisdictions over all these things that are coming in from state and other sovereign governments, reminding us that, you know, our job is with tribal governments is to remember that we in the federal government are ward of them, they're ward of us, and to be very careful about anything that would flip that sovereignty. I'm not against tribal people. My mom grew up in Omak, always instilling in us as we grew up the tragedy of our tribes. But their government is socialistic, and the people only get about 10 to 15 cents on the dollar of all the money sent to them federally and statewide. So it's incumbent on us to assure that whatever we establish, whether it's water or casinos, that we are honoring the people, just as we honor the people in our state. So please remember that and carefully consider and put special attention towards these decisions because they will affect not just our county, not just our state, but it probably will be a nationwide ripple effect. So I thank you for that and turn back my time.
No other callers? No other public comment? So Keith, I'd like to ask your, you want to go into closed session first or executive session first?
Let's do the closed session first.
Okay. So I'll let you call them.
Yes, I'm requesting a closed session with the board, with our HR director, clerk of the board, myself, and the sheriff be allowed to participate under RCW 42.30.1404B.
Okay, so we'll go into closed session.
Keith, if I could ask, who are you requesting for attending the executive session?
Just the board and myself and the clerk.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
No, we shouldn't. We're fine.
Eric, we're going to be talking about negotiations
Yes,
with law enforcement.
not with law enforcement.
So at this time, we'll come out of closed session and go into executive session. Yeah, we have to come out of closed session. Okay, we have come out of closed session at this time, back to the open meeting, but at this time, we'll move into executive session.
Yes, I would request an executive session for up to 10 minutes. I don't think it will take that long, but this is under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph G, evaluate qualifications of applicant for employment. I'd ask that the board, myself, and the clerk be allowed to participate.
Okay. So at this time, we'll go into executive. Okay, we've come out of executive session, and we're back into regular session. Is there any more business for the good of the county?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we follow the county administrator's recommendation for filling the currently vacant HR director's position at Franklin County.
Second.
Been a motion and a second to fill the HR position for Franklin County. All in favor, say aye.
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 And I'll abstain.
And for the record, Mr. Chairman, the administrator's recommendation was the current temporary incumbent in that
You didn't make
position.
that in your motion, Commissioner Peck. You just said fill.
Mr. Chairman, I move to clarify the record since that appears necessary for you.
think
Mr.
it's-
Johnson, would you please tell us for the record who your recommended candidate was?
I'm recommending that we make the temporary assignment of Eric Wyatt a permanent offer to offer him the HR director's position.
And that's my motion.
Well, thank you, Mr. Johnson, for cleaning that up. There's been a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Yes, I second it.
There's been a second to fill the vacant position with the current person as the pro term. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All abstain. Thank you. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting.